A frail-looking man wearing faded jeans, worn-out sneakers, and a weathered jacket stood quietly at the entrance of one of the most successful department stores in the country. Within minutes, security began watching him suspiciously, a few employees avoided eye contact, and several customers assumed he did not belong there. Then, just as one supervisor prepared to ask him to leave, the entire building froze when the company's board of directors rushed through the front doors and addressed the quiet stranger as the founder and CEO. But the greatest shock came when he calmly admitted that he had entered his own store disguised as a struggling customer for one heartbreaking reason: to discover who still believed that every person deserved kindness before judgment. Before we uncover the life-changing lessons hidden behind that ordinary shopping trip, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us how compassion can change lives. Graham Whitmore had built Whitmore Living from a single neighborhood shop into one of the country's most respected home and family retail chains. Business magazines praised his leadership, employees admired the generous benefits he introduced, and customers trusted the company because it proudly advertised that every visitor would be treated with dignity and respect. Over the years, Graham stepped away from public appearances, allowing younger executives to become the faces of the company while he quietly focused on charitable work and long-term planning. Many newly hired employees had never seen his face. Some knew only his name from framed photographs hanging in administrative hallways they rarely entered. Although the business continued growing, Graham became increasingly uncomfortable with glowing financial reports that described customer satisfaction in percentages and employee culture through polished presentations. Every meeting celebrated rising profits, expanding locations, and record-breaking sales. Yet one question lingered in his mind after every quarterly report. If someone entered one of his stores wearing old clothes, carrying obvious burdens, and unable to purchase much, would they still experience the kindness the company promised? Statistics could not answer that question. Only ordinary human behavior could. Rather than announcing inspections or sending secret corporate evaluators carrying clipboards, Graham chose a different approach. Early one sunny morning, he dressed in clothing he had worn years earlier while renovating his first little shop. The jacket had faded with age. The shoes showed signs of countless repairs. He left behind his expensive watch, removed every symbol of wealth, and carried a reusable shopping bag with a broken handle. Looking into the mirror, he barely recognized himself. He drove alone to one of the company's busiest flagship stores located in a thriving suburban shopping district. Families pushed strollers beneath bright blue skies. Children laughed while holding colorful balloons. Delivery trucks unloaded merchandise beneath warm afternoon sunlight. Everything appeared cheerful and welcoming from the outside. Inside, polished floors reflected sunlight streaming through enormous front windows. Carefully arranged displays showcased beautiful furniture, affordable kitchenware, clothing, and household necessities. Soft music drifted through the aisles as employees greeted shoppers. At first, nobody noticed Graham. He slowly wandered through several departments, intentionally examining price tags before quietly placing items back on shelves. He carried himself like someone calculating every dollar before making difficult decisions. The first employee who passed him offered only a hurried greeting without slowing down. The second never looked at him. The third glanced toward his worn jacket before turning away to assist another customer dressed in designer clothing. Graham felt disappointed but reminded himself that busy moments often distracted people. He continued walking. Near the bedding section, a young sales associate named Rowan Fletcher noticed him standing silently beside a display of blankets. Rowan had worked at the store for less than a year. His paycheck helped support his widowed grandmother after unexpected medical expenses forced her into early retirement. Because of those difficult seasons, Rowan understood how embarrassing financial hardship could feel. Without hesitation, he approached Graham with genuine warmth. He asked if he could help. Graham quietly admitted that he was searching for a warm blanket because the heating system in his apartment barely worked anymore, but the prices seemed beyond what he could afford. Instead of directing him toward the cheapest clearance rack, Rowan carefully showed him several options with better quality that happened to be discounted because of seasonal promotions. He explained how different materials retained warmth, pointed out an additional coupon available through the store's free rewards program, and even searched the stockroom for one package with slightly damaged wrapping that qualified for a deeper markdown while leaving the blanket itself untouched. Throughout the conversation, Rowan never sounded impatient. He never assumed Graham was incapable of paying. He simply treated him like someone worthy of honest help. As Graham thanked him, another employee walked by and quietly joked that Rowan was spending far too much time assisting someone who probably wasn't buying anything anyway. The words landed heavily. Rowan smiled politely but continued helping Graham without responding to the remark. Graham noticed everything. He continued through other departments. In the kitchenware aisle, a supervisor watched him closely after seeing him compare prices for nearly 10 minutes. When Graham accidentally dropped a measuring cup while examining it, the supervisor sighed loudly before reminding him to be more careful around merchandise. Nearby shoppers turned toward him. Embarrassment spread across Graham's face. For a brief moment, he remembered his childhood after his father lost stable employment. Back then, his own family had often entered stores only to calculate whether basic necessities could fit inside painfully limited budgets. He remembered pretending not to notice suspicious looks from strangers who confused poverty with dishonesty. Those memories had never completely disappeared. Near the checkout area, Graham intentionally placed several modest household items into his basket before quietly removing two because the total exceeded the amount of cash visible inside his old wallet. A cashier impatiently tapped the counter while another customer behind him sighed dramatically. Before Graham could decide what to leave behind, Rowan stepped forward. Without making Graham feel embarrassed, Rowan scanned every available discount, combined eligible promotions, and reduced the total enough that nothing needed to be removed. The savings came entirely through company-approved offers. No rules were broken. Only effort had been invested. As Graham prepared to leave, an elderly woman struggling with heavy shopping bags lost her balance near the exit. Before anyone else reacted, Rowan rushed over, steadied her gently, gathered her dropped groceries, and walked her safely to a nearby bench where sunlight warmed the entrance. Graham quietly watched. Kindness, he realized, had become Rowan's instinct rather than a performance. Just then, several black vehicles arrived outside. Senior executives stepped out alongside members of the board. Store managers immediately hurried toward the entrance, assuming an unexpected corporate visit had begun. The regional director spotted Graham first. His expression changed instantly. He walked directly toward the man wearing faded clothes and respectfully greeted him as Mr. Whitmore. Silence spread through the entrance. Employees stared in complete disbelief. The impatient supervisor's face turned pale. The cashier who had hurried him lowered her eyes. Customers looked back and forth, struggling to understand what had just happened. Graham calmly thanked the executives before asking everyone to gather near the customer service area. No anger appeared on his face. No dramatic accusations followed. Instead, he spoke quietly enough that people leaned closer to hear. He explained that the company had never been built merely to sell products. It existed because years earlier, when he was a struggling young father with almost nothing, One small neighborhood shop owner had treated him with dignity despite knowing he could barely afford bread and blankets for his family. That simple kindness restored hope during one of the darkest seasons of his life. When success eventually arrived, Graham promised himself that every store carrying his name would honor that same spirit. Then he revealed why he had come anonymously. Financial reports showed healthy profits. Customer surveys looked impressive. Yet no spreadsheet could measure whether compassion remained alive inside everyday interactions. Only ordinary moments could reveal the truth. He praised many employees for working diligently under constant pressure. He acknowledged how exhausting retail could become. Then he gently described each experience from that morning without mentioning names at first. He spoke about invisible assumptions people made based solely on appearance. He described how easily dignity could disappear beneath hurried judgments. Finally, he turned toward Rowan. In front of employees, executives, customers, and board members, Graham thanked him for demonstrating the company's true purpose. Not because he recognized the CEO. Because he never needed to. Rowan had simply chosen kindness. Tears filled Rowan's eyes as he admitted he had done nothing extraordinary. He explained that his grandmother often reminded him every stranger carried a story hidden beneath the clothes they wore. Some battles could never be seen. Graham smiled. He replied that businesses spent millions teaching customer service but often overlooked something much simpler. People never forgot how they were made to feel. That afternoon, Graham made several important decisions. Rather than firing employees who had treated him poorly, he introduced company-wide training centered on empathy, respect, and unconscious bias. Every workshop included stories from customers who experienced financial hardship, disability, loneliness, or grief. Employees were encouraged to remember that the person standing quietly before them might be facing the hardest season of their life. The impatient supervisor expected dismissal. Instead, Graham invited him into a private conversation. The supervisor confessed that overwhelming stress at home had slowly made him impatient with everyone around him. His wife had recently become seriously ill, medical bills continued growing, and fear had quietly transformed into frustration he unknowingly carried into work each day. Graham listened without interruption. He reminded the supervisor that personal pain explained behavior but never excused hurting others. Then the company connected the family with employee assistance resources and flexible scheduling so he could care for his wife without sacrificing his career. The supervisor later apologized personally to every member of his team and worked tirelessly to rebuild trust. Months passed. The atmosphere inside the store changed noticeably. Employees greeted every customer with genuine attention rather than automatic phrases. Managers regularly spent time assisting shoppers instead of remaining inside offices. Break-room conversations increasingly focused on helping coworkers rather than competing against one another. Customer letters praising compassion began arriving more frequently than letters praising prices. As for Rowan, he received an unexpected promotion into leadership development, not because he achieved the highest sales numbers, but because he consistently demonstrated the character Graham hoped would shape the company's future. When Rowan asked why he had been chosen over more experienced candidates, Graham answered with heartfelt sincerity. Skills could always be taught. Integrity could only be lived. Years later, Graham often visited stores without announcing his arrival. Sometimes employees recognized him. Most of the time they did not. It no longer mattered. The greatest success was not whether people identified the founder. It was whether they treated every stranger as though their worth had nothing to do with appearance, wealth, or circumstance. One bright afternoon, Graham returned once more to the same flagship location. He quietly watched Rowan, now a respected store manager, patiently helping a tired father compare school supplies while gently entertaining the man's young daughter with a coloring page from the children's activity corner. Nobody knew the founder stood nearby observing. Nobody changed their behavior because of his presence. They simply continued treating people with kindness. Graham smiled to himself. The company he had dreamed of building finally existed not because of impressive buildings or remarkable profits, but because compassion had become part of its foundation. Before this story comes to its close, we would love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether one simple act of kindness from a stranger has ever changed your life, because your experience may become the encouragement someone else desperately needs today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that every person we meet carries unseen burdens, and sometimes the greatest opportunity we will ever receive is not closing a successful sale, but opening our hearts to someone who simply needs to be treated with dignity, compassion, and hope.